saw them up close, but even if I didn't feel like I could do what they were doing like they were doing it, I knew how they did it. And every player sort of has your own little twist on things. So when I had to learn all the journey stuff, I would play my fast runs different than Neil Sean plays them. I could play the same speed, but my patterns were different, so they sound a little different. Beck was the first guy that I watched live, and I was like, I don't even know how he's doing that. He does stuff with the bar that sounds like he's playing slide, but he's not. Because you're going, oh, there we go. You're going, well, he's got a slide. Clearly he's got a slide. I'm looking for the slide, and then I'm like, he doesn't have a slide right now. But he'll, so he does these little bends, but it's just he's just finessing the bar. So, but when you watch him play, he doesn't move his hands a whole lot. So he's all volume knob. So it's all happening from the guitar. He rarely does he use a pedal. So Terry Bozzio has been a friend of mine for years, and so I was of course asking him, tell me all the tricks and secrets. And he's like, literally, his biggest thing every night was whether or not he was going to use a chorus pedal. I'm like, come on, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, and sometimes he would use a delay, and then the next night he'd go, I don't want to use the delay. And just pedal. So he has a rat, a chorus, and a delay. That was like his rig. And then I'm like, what amps? And he's like, he uses like 100 watt or 200 watt old Marshalls or whatever is available. Do you guys remember Blaze of Glory, the John Bon Jovi? Bon Jovi song? So Beck played on that. It's just killer. And he said when it was in LA, they cut it. Beck was like, they ordered his guitar rig, like send his rig over with cartage, And so he's like, he tells us just to rent a Marshall. So they want to rent a Marshall. Like, okay, so they call SIR and they rent like a couple half stacks. And they're like, anything you want, like any year or any spinning. They're just like, no, he just wants like 100 watt Marshall. So they get a couple amps, and then they said they're all waiting, bated breath to like see what he uses. And Fender sends over this bright yellow Stratocaster with lace sensors in it. And it's just, there's like, he wants a 100 watt Marshall and a Strat. That's what he uses. And then his tech shows up with a duffel bag, and they said he opened the duffel bag, there's like cables and some pedal, and they get out a rat pedal. And a rat pedal into the Marshall, this guitar that Fender just sent over, and picks it up, and it's Jeff Beck. He was like, we were just going, how does he do that? And that's one of the things is as a player, obviously instruments are important, and I used to go like, I don't obsess about my instrument much. I just kind of, until I had to design one that would get reproduced. And then I'm like, I'm really particular about every single detail. But just over the years, I kind of got it to a good spot. So from there, I don't deviate much. It's just sort of like, it's right. But it's a bit like a microphone. So there's a lot of work that goes into making a microphone, make the sound of it and all that. But you can hand it to 100 different singers and it's going to sound 100 different ways. And so a lot of people like to try to go, man, I'm going to try a new mic. And I just kind of want to go. Or you can practice singing. That'd be good too. You gotta have a good mic. But better mic will better reveal who you really are. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's stand on that. 2 amps or modelers? What do you use?
I use both. So it depends on the setting for me. My amp of choice is Marshall Plexis. That's what I've always played. It's what I always gravitate towards that sound. I like AC30s for some things, but my main thing is Plexi Marshalls, or things that sound really close to that. So now we live in a cool day and age where there's so many boutique amps and different things. So the reason that I used modeling, and still do a lot, is I had to make it work because I flew all the time. And it was, there was also a couple of my studios, I couldn't turn up an amp or my neighbors would have shot me, so. So I really worked with the modeling stuff just to try to see if I could make it work. And there's, I stumbled across years ago one Line 6 model and one cabinet that I think is by far the best thing they've ever done, still. And that's what I used forever. And that's the thing that most people are going, you're the only person who can make a pod sound like that. And I'm like, well, nobody's using this amp. It sounds killer. And the cabinet, but after like HD 500 came out, they never put that amp in this. And then I was like begging them, please put the amp. Then they put the amp in it, they didn't put the cabinet in it. And I realized how much the cabinet was doing for the sound. So it was more of a pragmatic approach, just trying to make it work, using in-ears, going to venue after venue, and needing to reproduce a sound that was consistent and that felt good to me. And so, but make no mistake, so I'm not a digital guy. I am trying to use a software emulated tube amp, if that makes sense. So I'm always tube amps, but I can't bring my 68 Plexi with me everywhere. So I just try to come up with something that sounds very similar. And I think by and large, I've had really good luck with that. And if it didn't sound right, I wouldn't use it. And so that, the albums you've heard have been combinations of things. Some of them plugins, some of them are floor boxes. I've used the Kemper, I've used the Axe Effects, and then real amps as well. And so is there a better or worse? Not in my opinion. It's what works for your setting, So if I was here playing in church, half stack's probably a little much. Especially an old Plexi one, Now if you had a box, like an attenuator, maybe an aux or tube amp expander, and you could turn the volume down, maybe that's okay. Then you could do it if you wanted to. If I played here and I did not use in-ears, I would probably want to hear my amp a little bit. And so I'd have to modify, how I did that. Tonight I'll be using in-ears. I won't feel anything. All I'll hear is what's coming into my in-ears. So all I'll hear is this. And so, again, you just gotta make sure that it behaves correctly. It sounds, like this patch I'm using, I think is the Park 75 in the HD 500, but the Park 75 is a Marshall. They changed the name because of the divorce. That's the whole thing. She got all the Marshall stuff, so he started Park.
So you kind of indirectly answered this, but I was wondering if you could expand on it. So why stick with the 500 and not move up to the Helix? Is it because the amp's not in it?
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble. Okay. And this is all love. I like everybody. I like all the companies. They're all friends of mine. And they all make really cool stuff. Helix is a cool box. How many have a Helix in here? Yeah, so it's a very powerful box. It has a lot of positive attributes.